What's good in the hood? Israel Adesanya took another loss on his resume, this time against Joe Pyfer, a man that was not even in the top 10, so probably one of the lower level fighters that he has lost to in his current streak of, I believe it's 4 losses, 5 in his last 6. And this is a far, far grace from where he used to be, even a few years back where he knocked out Alex Pereira, got his belt back. People thought we're going to see another, lengthy title run. But he lost it. He lost to Sean Strickland. Now he's on multiple fight losing streak. And it makes me think that we might be seeing the second coming of the Tony Ferguson losing streak that we saw a few years back. Tony himself went from the high of highs to losing to Justin Gaethje, which started an 8-fight losing streak before he eventually moseyed on over to Misfit Boxing and whatnot. Drop a like or a comment if you enjoyed this or what your thoughts are. But without further ado, yeah, I mean, this is the scariest image really from that weekend. I mean, Macy Barber probably took actually the scariest image, but we'll focus on her in another day. But yeah, Adesanya, he was put down, he got mounted, then he couldn't get back up from his stomach. He was rocked. Not as bad as what it might perceive from this picture. He definitely got hit back by Joe Pyfer when he was going for the finish in the second round. But the reality is he got taken down and he couldn't get back up. He was a little hurt, but he also just couldn't get back up, it's just humbling for a guy that not only is a former 2-time middleweight champion, but also had at times shown tremendous takedown offense against some very high-level competition such as Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero, Paulo Costa, and then a guy like Joe Pyfer, who not many perceived to be at his level, did the unthinkable. He took him down multiple times in the fight, rocked him, stood the base on the feet, and ended up taking him down, like I said, in the second round. And Israel couldn't do anything. It took like 20 unanswered strikes where they had to call it. Naturally, everyone thought, and I did too, that retirement, even on a fight night, could be a possibility. He's lost 4, at least he's lost 5 his last 6. He has nothing else to prove. He's rich. He was already considered, even Joe Pyfer called him the middleweight GOAT, but he had this to say. Kind of weird phrasing, but I know it's hard on my people seeing me fall. I promise you it's harder on me. Regardless, we respond and go again. I don't know what those emojis are supposed to be. Was that snake eyes? I'm old, as you can tell. But I mean, yeah, he was pretty dismissal. DC tried to interview him, and he said, no, I'm going to keep fighting. I still have that spirit in me. I know he took a year off, and he was looking to actually get into like a real scrap, because some of his fights recently, they weren't always the biggest firefights, and this was a firefight. For better or worse, it was only less than 2 rounds. It was a good damn scrap, and he got rocked. He rocked Joe. He almost finished Joe, but then Joe ended up finishing him. It was a great fight, and he looked really good in the first round. Looked decent in the second round. Just, I think, pushed that finish a little too much, and then got cracked. But yeah, this is why I think back to Tony. I mean, Tony was in the same boat. And Adesanya is going down the same path he did. I mean, Adesanya, let's see in the rankings. Joe, wow, tied for number 6. I don't know how that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's weird. 7 just doesn't exist. They're just going to tie him. But Joe was at 8. So he was 14. Adesanya was 4. Now Adesanya is hovering, teetering at the top 10. He's been a champ for pretty much, the last 7, 8 years. And before that, he had a quick rise to the top. Now we're on a trajectory where, and Robert's going to be moving on himself, that Adesanya might be out of the rankings by the end of the year. If he has one more fight and loses, he might be out. They could hold him on a little bit just because he's a big name, and a lot of these fights have been competitive, but it's a far cry from where he was, like I said, 2-3 years ago, where he beat Pereira on the rematch, finished him, and everyone thought, there's no way. Like those are all lukewarm, fluke losses that, like, even the Strick one, they'd be like, he had a bad night, this and that. He's still a high level athlete. But this is the same thing we said about Tony. I mean, Tony. I mean, Tony, like, let's look. I mean, his record was crazy. I mean, up until his loss to Justin Gaethje, and I love Justin, but Justin killed it for everyone. He was on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fight win streak. Was at that point already was supposed to be booked to fight Khabib or whoever was the champ at this time or that time. Got the interim belt, but the sad reality was due to some business decisions and just the poor timing, and then Khabib ended up pulling out. He fought Justin. He even cited the fact that he trained purely wrestling, and then lo and behold, he's fighting a guy like Justin who's A, hard to take down, and B, a killer on the feet. took an unimaginable amount of damage, and the rest was history. He went on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 losses in a row before he finally made his grand return to Misfit Boxing, where he's actually doing very well for, who's fighting Salt Poppy and all that shit. But I mean, you look over the losses too. We had the same thought as I go back down memory lane and get myself nightmares. Justin obviously ends up being a high-level athlete in the UFC, for better or worse. So the loss it is what it is, short notice. Charles Oliveira, he was on a resurgence at the time. He went the 3 rounds, which is actually impressive because during Charles' run, that big win streak he had, I believe Tony was the only one he couldn't finish. So not that bad on Tony's feather cap for losing 2 in a row. Beneil, in hindsight, was pretty good leading up to that. I think he was on a lengthy win streak, but he didn't look good against Beneil. Beneil took him down at will. The Chandler fight, he showed, old Tony in the first round, cracked Chandler, dropped him, but then he ended up just getting sent to the shadow realm with that front head kick. That's 4 losses. Then he goes on to fight Nate, do all that shenanigans with Chimaev. The Nate fight, not good. I mean, Nate, for better or worse, if you think he's a good fighter or not, at that time, he was on very much the tail end of his career, and he got, choked out. Not a good look. I think it was at welterweight, though, so we'll give him a bone. The King Green one was real bad. I mean, King Green is supposed to be like a prospect killer, like kind of like the guy that you beat to eventually get into the rankings, and King Green finished him, choke, really bad. The Patty fight, not good either. I mean, he got rocked multiple times in the Patty fight, really showed no inclination of actually having a chance to win, and then the Michael Chiesa fight, choked down a minute, or for sub 1 round. And like I said, compared back to Adesanya, because Adesanya, earlier in his career, he was on, let's see, 1, 2, actually not include these fights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fights in a row before he lost. First time in the UFC, and it was moving up to fight Jan Blachowicz. Not a terrible loss to have on your record. And it was like a 3-2, I believe, maybe 4-1 decision. Then he goes and gets another 3 title defenses before he finally loses to his arch rival Pereira. But he does the unthinkable. He comes back, 6 months later and beats Pereira 5 months later. Apologies for the math. And you think, okay, like he gets caught and he loses to Pereira, but he gets the win back. He's only got 2 losses in the UFC, and one of them was trying to go for doubles champ status, and Pereira we knew was good, and he's even better now. But then he goes and he loses to Strickland. Massive upset. Really bad for Adesanya's just like where he is in the sport. Then he comes back, takes a lengthy retirement, comes back like 10 minutes later, loses again to DDP, but he still looks good. Similar to the path that Tony was going down. He shows signs of he's winning the fight here and there, but he gets finished. At the end of the day, it's a fight, and he could not finish the fight, and DDP was, so he loses. The Nasruddin Ivanov one's another one that stings. It only goes 2 rounds. He's winning, we would say, overall in the fight. He's up a round, we would say. Even Dana White was like, I thought he looked really sharp, really fast. But the sad reality is they take one little break for, I think it was like a nut shot. Right after the break, Ivanov catches him, finishes him. Adesanya looks helpless on the ground. Could have gotten a lot more damage if they didn't step in, at the time they did. But we think, all right, he still looks good. And Nasruddin Ivanov is the uncrowned number 1 contender. He says he's number 5 here, but he's like the number 1 contender if he ever gets that title shot, because Joe Pyfer's about to steal it. And then he takes another lengthy time off. He takes, 13 months off, almost 14. Comes back to fight arguably one of the lowest contenders, the lowest ranked guys, in his recent fights. I mean, look, we're looking at current rankings. That Marvin Vettori or maybe Brad Tavares way back then, Derek Brunson. Everyone else was top 10, top 5 ranked. And this is going off Tapology, so they're including other organizations. Joe Pyfer is number 15 right now. He lost to Joe Pyfer. Again, he looks good, but for some reason, he doesn't have that like killer intent. Like, it's like weird. It's like, he looks good until he gets caught or his chin gets tested. And I don't know if it's his lack of fighting spirit. It's that lack of drive because, he's already been there and he's done that and he doesn't need to go any further. And it's actually weird because I don't think it's the same as Tony. I think Tony he just regressed real bad after taking so much damage. I think in the case of Adesanya, he's just getting exposed by the fact that he's fighting less frequently and he's facing just like some pretty stiff competition at times. Imanov was pretty stiff. DDP was unorthodox. Sean Strickland is just a tough short-term puzzle to solve. But the Joe Pyfer one, I think, is now going to be the turning point where people are going to think, like, where does he go from here? And that's why I'm concerned, because he's still ranked, which means he wants to fight again. And that's the thing, too, is he's similar to Tony, where Tony, every time he lost a fight, the interview would come out where they'd be like, Tony, should you retire? And then it was even worse when Dana would push for it. And every time Tony, and this was after his 7th straight loss, he would dismiss it. Excuse me. He'd get aggressive at at the reporters. Adesanya hasn't shown that. I think he's a lot more composed and that kind of stuff than Ferguson was. But the reality is, Adesanya and Ferguson carry that like inner warrior spirit where they know, like, either from like the fight camp, in the gym, etc., plus their past fights and where they were in the past, that they can't accept that they're regressing and they're no longer at that top of the heat, and they want to keep fighting, which I totally get. I'm a competitor at heart too at times, and I wouldn't want to accept it until all signs point to me needing to retire. But that's the dangerous thing about the fighting game is the more you fight, the more you're at risk of getting finished. And again, like I said, Tony, he was getting finished, thankfully, a lot by chokes. But that's a sting on his record. He was supposed to be this dangerous grappling black belt, unorthodox guy that was supposed to be the kryptonite to Habib's Sambo, and he's getting choked out by Michael Chiesa and like Bobby King Green. Really tough on the resume. And Adesanya already has a great resume, but just like what it was with like Anderson Silva, the more you lose, the more people are going to question your lengthy run, 5-6 years back, and question where you're just fighting, not so good competition. I'll shout MMA Guru, where he kind of implied that was it this weekend on his recap, where he's like, maybe he just wasn't fighting like really, really complete middleweight fighters. Maybe he was fighting smaller middleweight guys, and now he's starting to fight these big guys, like these guys like Joe Pyfer. They're like 6'2", and they can actually really impose their will on Adesanya. And we're also just finding out that Adesanya, no different than arguably Max Holloway, just like doesn't have like a level of like jujitsu / ability to just get up. I mean, it's kind of a shame that you get taken down by a guy who's not considered an elite wrestler. I mean, Charles is definitely more, I think, than Joe Pyfer was, but the fact that you get taken down, you just get held down. And in the case of Adesanya, he was hurt, but still he got held down. And next thing you know, he literally couldn't move, and he was just getting striked infinitely. Like, it's a bad look, and it makes you think, was he just fighting guys that weren't at that level beforehand? I disagree. I think he was just a lot sharper back then and was really good stuffing takedowns. And if he did get taken down, he was really good at just biding his time to get to the cage and get up. It just sucked that, he's getting challenged by Joe Pyfer at the tail end of his career. I don't know where he goes from here. It's the same with Tony, where they're going to keep giving you like lower and lower competition. Which they should, because if they're not going to cut him, and Dana doesn't seem like he wants to cut him, unlike with Tony, Dana has not shown any inclination that he would not offer a fight. So they're going to keep doing what they did with Tony. They're going to keep giving you less guys until they either give you these unranked veterans or these like prospects that need to have a big name like Patty to kind of like build their rise up. So they're either going to give him freebies for fun fights, or they're going to make him prove himself and kind of be like a gatekeeper. And it's the names that have been thrown out would be, he's not even ranked actually, which is interesting. Shara Bullet, for better or worse, because Shara Bullet's A, not going to wrestle you, and B, it's just going to be good for the fans, I think, and it's going to tailor to Adesanya's chances of winning. But on the flip side for Dana, it would be like if Shara gets a win over Adesanya in a fun, exciting fight, it'd kind of be like that passing of the torch moment, similar to when Adesanya fought Silva, 7-8 years ago. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. He's already fought Cannonier. There's no point in running that back. Robert's leaving. This would be scary because if RoboCop clips you and he just gets killed, I don't know, man. Paulo Costa is like also tentatively leaving. Roman, it's just like I don't know if they hinted if this is a legitimate rumor or not. Him going up to, was it light heavyweight? I mean, at the very least, you could at least get a change in pace, and most of these names would be completely fresh. I don't know. It just feels like his time at middleweight's probably done. And yeah, I think like as the point goes back to kind of with Tony, like he should seriously consider like, why is he still in the UFC? I know he likes MMA and this and that, but if he really wants to compete, he should try to see if he can go do some boxing. If he's not allowed to do Zuffa boxing, because I don't know why they don't do crossover, see if he can like somehow finagle out of his contract, or just say like, I won't compete in other MMA, but can I compete in boxing? Like, do a couple of those fights and then, call it quits and just be an ambassador and train and be a coach. Like, I don't know. Like, there's really not much more point, because the more he does this, the more he's taking damage, and the more he does this, the more he's going to tarnish his resume. And for, like I said, some they still view Silva as the GOAT at middleweight. For some, they view Adesanya. I'm kind of torn, because in the case of Silva, he took a lot of losses at the tail end. Plus, he had the PED incident. But Adesanya is going down the same path too. And it's kind of crazy because you think something like, was it Kamaru Usman? Kamaru Usman took some losses at the tail end of his career. But unlike someone like Adesanya, he got a win against a relevant contender. Sure, it's been almost a year now, but it was a dominant win. And it at least helped clarify, like, okay, like it wasn't just like a fluke where he had these 3 losses in a row. Like he came back and he beat a contender. And you're like, all right, it preserves his like potential second place GOAT status at welterweight. So that's my 2 cents. Let me know in the comments. Should Adesanya retire? I don't think just yet. Give him like one more chance. Just someone a little lower on the competition, even though Joe was arguably pretty low to begin with. Is Sharp Bullet the necessary evil he needs to fight? Maybe Wonder Boy moves up to middleweight because Wonder Boy has one more fight. Throw those 2 because they're strikers. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Who should he fight next? And how worried are you when he fights later this year? Yeah. And then obviously, if you enjoy any of this, if you enjoy any of this, give me a sub. I'm going to try to drop some more videos later this week because we got some big pay-per-views coming up. Some big ones. Stay tuned.